Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavadikacharya Stota Divine Grace Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Gaur Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 29, and we're up to text 13. Salokya Sarsti Samipya Salokya Sarsti Samipya Sarupyai Katpam Apyuta Sarupyai Katpam Apyuta Diyamanam Nagrinanti Diyamanam Nagrinanti Vinamatsevanam Janaha Vinamatsevanam Janaha Salokya Sharsti Samipya Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta Diyamanam Nagrinanti Vinamatsevanam Janaha. Okay. Salokya, living on the same planet. Sharshti, having the same opulence. Samipya, to be a personal associate. Sarupya, having the same bodily features. Ekatvam, oneness. Api, also. Uta, even. Diyamanam, being offered. Na, not. Grinanti, do accept. Vina, without. Mat, my. Sevanam, devotional service. Janaha, pure devotees. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation. Salokya, Sarshti, Samipya, Sarupya, or Ekatva, even though they are offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya teaches us how to execute pure devotional service out of spontaneous love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Shikshashtaka, he prays to the Lord, O Lord, I do not wish to gain from you any wealth, nor do I wish to have a beautiful wife, nor do I wish to have many followers. All I want from you is that in life after life, I may remain a pure devotee at your lotus feet. There is a similarity between the prayers of Lord Chaitanya and the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya prays in life after life, indicating that a devotee does not even desire the cessation of birth and death. The yogis and empiric philosophers desire cessation of the process of birth and death. But a devotee is satisfied to remain even in this material world and execute devotional service. It is clearly stated herein that a pure devotee does not desire ekatva, oneness with the Supreme Lord, as desired by the impersonalists, the mental speculators, and the meditators. To become one with the Supreme Lord is beyond the dream of a pure devotee. You know, that's Prabhupada's way of saying, it's out of the question. Forget about it. Not even a consideration, okay? So, to become one with the Supreme Lord is beyond the dream of a pure devotee. Sometimes he may accept promotion to the Vaikuntha planets to serve the Lord there, but he will never accept merging into the Brahman effulgence, which he considers worse than hellish. Such a katva, or merging into the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, is called kaivalya. But the happiness derived from kaivalya is considered by the pure devotee to be hellish. The devotee, now this sentence here coming up, this is the key to understanding this whole passage. Okay. The devotee is so fond of rendering service to the Supreme Lord that the 5 kinds of liberation are not important to him. That's the key, okay? I'll read that sentence one more time and then continue. The devotee is so fond of rendering service to the Supreme Lord that the 5 kinds of liberation are not important to him. If one is engaged in pure transcendental loving service to the Lord, it is understood that he has already achieved the 5 kinds of liberation. When a devotee is promoted to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, he receives 4 kinds of facilities. One of these is Salokya, living in the same planet as the Supreme Personality. The Supreme Person, in his different plenary expansions, lives on innumerable Vaikuntha planets. And the chief planet is Krishnaloka. So note here it's stated that there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets. And on those innumerable Vaikuntha planets, there are innumerable Vaikuntha devotees. They're not empty, okay? So we're going to come back to that. Chief planet is Krishnaloka. Just as within this material universe, the chief planet is the sun, in the spiritual world, the chief planet is Krishnaloka. From Krishnaloka, the bodily effulgence of Lord Krishna is distributed not only to the spiritual world, but to the material world as well. It is covered by matter, however, in the material world. In the spiritual world, there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and on each one the Lord is the predominating deity. So once again, there's innumerable Vaikuntha planets. A devotee can be promoted to one such Vaikuntha planet to live with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Shashti liberation, the opulence of the devotee is equal to the opulence of the Supreme Lord. Samipya means to be a personal associate of the Supreme Lord. In Sarupya liberation, the bodily features of the devotee are exactly like those of the Supreme Person, but for 2 or 3 symptoms found exclusively on the transcendental body of the Lord. Srivatsa, for example, the hair on the chest of the Lord, particularly distinguishes him from his devotees. A pure devotee does not accept these 5 kinds of spiritual existence, even if they are offered. Well, okay. But what's going on then in the Vaikuntha planets? Follow what I'm saying? A pure devotee does not accept these 5 kinds of liberation, 5 kinds of spiritual existence, even if they are offered. So, who's in all those Vaikuntha planets? We just heard that there's innumerable Vaikuntha planets, right? They're not empty. But here we're hearing that a pure devotee doesn't accept these 5 kinds of spiritual existence, but we've also heard that to get into the Vaikuntha planet, you have to be a pure devotee. You can't go to Vaikuntha planets and not be a pure devotee, but a pure devotee doesn't accept what's there. It's like a little bit... Okay, reading on. It says here, and he certainly does not hanker after material benefits. Okay, forget about that. That we know. Which are all insignificant in comparison with spiritual benefits. But you would think that the spiritual... See, this is very nuanced. Okay, Ikatva, material benefits, forget it. We know that. That's old stuff. Forget about that. But here, in this translation, purport, we're hearing about how the devotee's not even interested in the spiritual benefits. He's not interested in those 5 kinds of liberation. It says, when Prahlad Maharaj was offered some material benefit, he stated, "My Lord, I have seen that my father achieved all kinds of material benefits, and even the demigods were afraid of his opulence, but still, in a second, you have finished his life and all his property." Okay, Prabhupada quotes that. For a devotee, there is no question of desiring any material. Okay, once again, that's a given. Yeah, we completely understand that. There's no question of a devotee desiring any material. But it goes on. Or spiritual prosperity. He simply aspires to serve the Lord. That is the highest happiness. Okay. He doesn't even desire the spiritual prosperity. But here, earlier we read, Prabhupada said that sometimes, where is it? Sometimes he may, referring to a devotee, sometimes he may accept promotion to the Vaikuntha planets to serve the Lord there. So how do we understand this? Because, at least on one level, there are statements in the Bhagavad Gita, probably elsewhere, that it's a good thing to go to Vaikuntha. Right? Ordinarily we think, well, yeah, that's good. If we can make it to Vaikuntha, you're eternally liberated. That's wonderful. And here we're hearing that it's actually something, you got to go beyond that. Well, as I said, I think the key to understanding I don't want to say a contradiction, but something that needs to be clarified was that sentence I read where it says, let's see if I could find it again. The devotee is so fond of rendering service to the Supreme Lord that the 5 kinds of liberation are not important to him. Okay. So I'm going to attempt to explain, give what my understanding of this is with one of my famous crude analogies. Here it comes. Okay, so everybody knows who Mahotsa is? Mahotsa, the disciple of Bhakti Vikash Maharaj. You've heard of him, right? Okay, yeah. So, back about, I don't know, I kind of lost track, maybe it's 5 years plus, he introduced the suptas. He, like everybody else, he was just out there distributing a book, 2, 3 books to people. But then, he's always taxing his brain how to increase the book distribution. And he came up with this idea he came up with it for sure. Suptas. Supta means 7. Supta Rishi. They would take 7 hardback books and they tied them up with a ribbon so it kind of looks like a little Christmas present or something. And they were presenting that to people. It's like 1 unit. They're getting 7 books, but it's like, because it's tied up with a ribbon and everything, it's like 1 unit. And it worked, He was able to start getting people to take, rather than just 1 or 2 books, boom, 7, boom. And then, one person one after the other. And the other devotees caught on. Well, he encouraged them. And they also started doing it. And then, that became the thing. I mean, just like months before he started doing that, it was like, almost like unheard of, right? To, all of a sudden just give somebody 7 books, boom. It's like, what? Like it's hard enough to give somebody 1 or 2 books, but 7's a lot. I mean, you're total perfect stranger, right? Somebody you've never met before, and all of a sudden you're walking up to them and handing them a stack of books like that. That's a lot. Okay, so they got that down though. He started doing it. He got all the other devotees doing it in Krishna Life and elsewhere as well. I think they were even before Krishna Life happened. They were doing that in New York. Then at some point, as I said, he's always taxing his brains how to increase the book distribution. So that became not good enough. And he's thinking, well, what do I do? What's the next level? Anyway, he decided Bhagavatam sets. We have to do the whole set. What? How do you do the whole set? How do you go up to a perfect stranger that doesn't know you from a bar of soap, and you somehow or another get him to take a whole box of Srimad Bhagavatams? You've seen what it's like about this, it's like this. And it weighs a lot. Anyway, so he started doing it. He started, trying. He was going to Patel Brothers supermarkets. They're like grocery stores like Ralph, Vons, Sprouts, but it's all like it's an Indian grocery store. And he got permission from the owner to have a table outside, and he was, he figured out a way to kind of go about it, and he was distributing, started distributing sets. And then he did that for like a year or two, and then devotees were saying, well, that's Indian people, sure. And then he took the challenge, okay? And they started going to these like trade shows, events, like Mind, Body, Spirit, or Comic-Con, and they would, book a table inside, and they started selling the sets to just regular old Americans, not Indians, just regular old people, So he demonstrated it can be done. So, okay, now getting to the point. Okay, so say he's in a situation, hypothetical situation. There's two different things happening at the same time. One is they're at, let's say in Houston, there's a Mind, Body, Spirit, and it's at a nice convention center, and it just so happens that there's some nice Indian Life members, devotees that are there. They own a motel, so the devotees who do that one, they could stay in the motel. They can, because the devotees will give them a nice motel room for themselves, and they're devotees, so they're Gujarati, so they really cook nicely, and they said, look, we will cook prasadam for you every day, and you have breakfast with us, and we'll bring out the lunch to the event, to the venue, everything. You just go out there and distribute the books. Don't worry, so they have, everything's all set up. Beautiful arrangement, okay? Now the other one is in San Antonio. It's, the Comic-Con, but no devotee. For some reason, the community there is not as well established, well organized. So whoever goes to that one, they'll have to stay in the truck. No motel. You just stay in the truck, which means you gotta figure out a place to sleep at night and not get hassled by the security. You gotta figure out a way to take a shower. You gotta shop for yourself, cook for yourself, stay warm at night. It's gonna be way more austere and inconvenient. But the thing is that at that other event, the one in San Antonio, it's kind of like a more happening crowd. It's like a younger, more avant-garde, kind of more likely that they're going to get more sets out, So, and he has to choose. So which one do you think he's going to choose? Do you think he's going to choose to go to the one in Houston, where he's got the room, he's got the prasadam, he's got everything, all set up in the Coliseum there or whatever? Or you think he's going to choose to distribute at the one in San Antonio, where he's got to stay in the truck, he's got to, they got to figure out how to cook for themselves and how they're going to shower and even where they're going to stay at night without being hassled by the, local security, but maybe do a lot more sets. Okay? What do you think? Sure, go. Which one is he going to choose? What? Probably. Most likely. Definitely. Definitely. Why? Because he is absorbed and there's nothing. And when I talk to him on the phone, it's kind of like a fanatic. I can't. All he is thinking about is, I got to get these sets out, and I got to get everybody else into getting these sets of Bhagavatams out. That's the only thing that's important. I'm not saying like that's how he talks, So for him, and he's got a taste for it. He's experienced that like amazing, special reciprocation of meeting a conditioned soul, a perfect stranger that maybe never even heard of Krishna up until that point, and he's experienced being able to talk to them and engage them in devotional service to the point where they're taking a set of Bhagavatams, giving him $300, and they're happy. I've seen the pictures, I've seen videos. It's not like they're going away like, how'd that happen? No, they're like happy. Not just him. I've seen it with other devotees too. After the person does it, they ask him to, say something. They record them. They do a little video, and the people are happy. So it's an amazing taste. It's an amazing rasa that some of these devotees have been blessed. They've been blessed to be allowed to experience. So for them, they couldn't care less about facility, fashmility, I mean, I don't care where I'm staying. I don't care whether, somebody's making nice prasadam. I mean, if it's there, great, but they couldn't, no. They just want to see the books go out. They just, that's it. And that's all that's really important to them. See, so that's the way to understand it, that these pure devotees that are being referred to here, where is that sentence again? The devotee is so fond of rendering service to the Supreme Lord that the 5 kinds of liberation are not important to him. Actually, nothing else is important to him. The only thing that's important to that devotee who's so fond of rendering that service to the Supreme Lord is to be able to do that service and see the Lord pleased. And as far as anything else goes, whatever. Okay? Now, so Prabhupada says in the purport here, he points out that actually it's interesting that, Lord Chaitanya, he made a similar statement to the statement that we're hearing here in the Bhagavatam, which is what we've just been saying, that, the pure devotee is not even interested in all these different 5 kinds of liberations, and he quotes that verse from the Shashashtakam. And on one occasion in Atlanta, in 1975, Prabhupada was he met with the book distributors, and Prabhupada himself made a similar statement, and I'll read it to you. So this is a conversation between Prabhupada and the book distributors. So the spokesman for the book distributors was a devotee named Tripurari, now Maharaj. So he says, sometimes the devotees ask if they can take birth again, distributing books for you. And you might expect Prabhupada to go, that's okay, that's a nice sentiment, but, just kind of, let's, keep it real here. Go back to Godhead. Anyway, here's what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said, very good. Very good. That is real devotion. A devotee does not want to go to Vaikuntha or any liberation. They are satisfied with the service. That is pure devotion. Prabhupada goes, I'm distributing books for the benefit of going to Krishna. That is selfishness. I want simply to distribute the books without any remuneration, without any personal, digresses. He says, that is pure devotee. He says, just like Prahlad Maharaj. He says, I do not wish to go to Vaikuntha unless I take all these rascals with me. That is pure devotee. Pure devotee, and then Prabhupada goes, he digresses, says, he's always under the protection of Krishna. What is the use of going to Vaikuntha? Wherever he stays, that is Vaikuntha. That is pure devotional service. Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahoitaki tvai. Life after life, I may go on with this business. I don't want anything. That is pure devotion. Okay, so we're pretty clear, on how it is that the devotee is not interested in those 5 kinds of liberation. Okay. Okay, so everybody's familiar with those Prabhupada memories that Siddhanta produced? Okay. So there was one that I remember. I can't remember the devotee, who he was, but he was describing how they brought Prabhupada. It was in the UK. And so they brought Prabhupada into like a house, and this devotee pointed out to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, this is a very, nice house, and we have a fireplace here. We don't use electricity or anything like that, or we keep the place warm from the fireplace. The devotee was thinking that, well, this is better. This is more like natural or whatever. So he presented that to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's response was, Vaishnavas don't burn wood, they use a chutter. Wow. In other words, okay, he's thinking like, well, we're not using electricity, we're not using gas, we go out, we chop up the wood, and we got this nice fireplace, and we're keeping the place warm. Prabhupada went, Vaishnavas don't burn wood, they use a chutter. So what's the point? That Prabhupada was instructing on how to go to a higher level of renunciation, right? So that's what we're getting. That's what we're getting here. In other words, it's not bad to want to go back to Godhead. It's not bad. You're not like a demon if you want to go back to Godhead. But there are levels, and Prabhupada, the Acharyas, are trying to take us to that highest level, the highest level of devotional service, as expressed. Well, Lord Chaitanya expresses it in the Shashashtakam, those one verse after the other. So, I think I'll read something where hopefully this will make that point a bit clearer. So this is from an excerpt from a Morning Walk Conversation in Denver, 1975. Prabhupada says, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, sometimes when we're reading Bhagavatam about the Prajapatis, they are such exalted persons. Prabhupada, oh yes, they are no ordinary person, Tamal Krishna. Yet sometimes they behave in such a way that is, Prabhupada goes, that is, after all, they are a living entity, conditioned. They are also conditioned. They are not liberated. Tamal Krishna. They are not pure devotees? Prabhupada, no. They want enjoyment. They want enjoyment, material. Tamal Krishna. Still, they're entrusted with very big posts. Prabhupada, yes. Satsarup. But Lord Brahma, he's a Prajapati. Prabhupada, he is the chief Prajapati. Satsarup. Isn't he a pure devotee? Prabhupada, no. Satsarup. But he composed the Brahma Samhita. Prabhupada, yes, he is devotee, not to the topmost extent. Tamal Krishna. Sometimes we hear that Lord Brahma incarnated as Thakur Haridas. So he's kind of in an indirect way, he's trying to say, come on, he must be a pure devotee if he's incarnating as Thakur Haridas. Prabhupada said, yes, Satsarup. Sometimes devotees say, then how come he's the head of our sampradaya if he's not a pure devotee? Prabhupada, it doesn't require. He is devotee. That's all right. There are grades of devotee. So that's the point. There are grades of devotee. And what we're hearing about today, in today's translation, purport, etc., is Prabhupada, the Acharyas, are trying to elevate us to the highest grade of devotee. But let me read on. It says there are grades of devotees, but on the whole, a devotee is a very exalted person. See, so that I think that's something that's helpful to put it all in perspective there. On the whole, devotee is a very exalted person, but yet there are grades. Now Prabhupada goes on to say, just like the gopis, nobody can be compared with the gopis. There are so many grades of devotees, but they are the ultimate. And amongst the gopis, Radharani, so there is no comparison, no more. Even Krishna is defeated there. Krishna became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to understand the devotion of Radharani. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I think the idea is this, that we should hear these statements and be encouraged, definitely not get discouraged, thinking that, oh my God, I thought, just to give up material sense gratification, that's a lot. And now I'm hearing I even have to give up spiritual sense gratification. I even have to give up wanting to go back to Godhead. It's okay. It's like one step at a time. One step at a time. It's not bad, but I think what's being presented here is that it's not necessarily the highest understanding, the highest, but it's also good. And I'm going to read something to once again try to put it in perspective. Okay, this is an excerpt from a lecture Prabhupada gave in New York, April 8th, 1973. So he says, so our process is very simple. Simply engage your tongue, leaving aside all other senses. And he goes on and he elaborates upon the two functions of the tongue, tasting and vibrating. And Prabhupada says, he concludes it, he says, if you follow these two principles, Krishna is within your grip. It makes it sound very simple, right? Leave aside all the other senses, just take prasadam, chant Hare Krishna, talk about Krishna. Prabhupada's saying, if you just do those two things, Krishna's within your grip. See, so there's like a dynamic going on. On one hand, sometimes the acharya, the spiritual master, is preaching in such a way so the devotee could feel like, this is I could do this. It's doable. I can do it. I feel it's not that hard. It's simple. And feel encouraged. But at the same, sometimes you're hearing things like what we hear today, that the pure devotee isn't even interested in these spiritual opulences like that. So it's all part of like the overall program of the acharya, of the spiritual master, to take the disciple, to take the devotee and just drag them up to ultimately to the highest level of devotional service. So we shouldn't feel discouraged, if you hear something like this, if you're feeling, oh no, this is too much. Now I even have to not even want to go back to Godhead? No, just hang in there. Just stick with all the different, the process and keep hearing. And as time goes on, everything will kind of, step by step, it'll all kind of fall in place. It'll all come together, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I'll stop there, and I hope that somebody might like to say something. Yeah, anybody? Comment? Question?
Question?
Yeah.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. So according to that verse, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, it's mentioning that one should serve Krishna how he wants to be served. Say Krishna is saying, come back home, take a spiritual body, serve me here. But we could maybe assume that he would be really pleased if, we stayed and we kept preaching or something. What's the proper understanding? That we know Krishna's heart, or that we should just do what he tells us? Does this make sense?
Question makes sense, and I'd like somebody else to answer it. Maybe Archita could answer that, and Nakatma Prabhu could answer that. Before you do, I'll just say, about 2 months ago, okay, I went up to Bhakta Ken. Everybody know who Bhakta Ken is? He's right over there. And I said, Bhakta Ken, I said, I noticed that for the last month or so, you've been coming to the morning program every morning. I said, what's going on? And he said to me, he said, well, I want to get out of the cycle of birth and death. I said, oh, okay. Now, should I have started preaching to him and saying, Bhakta Ken, that's not really what it's all about. I mean, trying to get out of the cycle of birth and death, we're really trying to just, no, that's good. I mean, I felt like when I heard that, I thought, okay, yeah, good for you. Anyway, so Archie, do you want to say something?
That reference you made of Sukharari, that covers, you take the initiation from a particular spiritual master and you take up the mood of that spiritual master. And you don't immediately come to the level of the spiritual master, obviously you can't. If you take up that mood, this mood is very clearly established. The spirit books, the spirit of silence, the spirit of the Holy Name. If you get into that, then, as you said, gradually, all other desires will fall away, even the desire for it. But, Prophet also said that you're not sufficiently afraid of life. Because when you were thinking of this attitude, okay, I won't get out of this lifetime, but next lifetime. Prophet said, no, you have to be afraid of life. It's the only way you will not be affected by life is if you're on the platform of pure devotion. So if you're not on that platform, it's artificial to say, no, you should want to get out. This place is horrible.
Yeah, give him mine.
I just saw, just before class, some really crazy guy was going down the street. He had a bag full of, bottles and stuff he had collected, but he was yelling and screaming like he was talking to somebody having a fight. He threw the bag, and so I said to the devotees that were there, we know this guy is crazy, but what we don't realize is that even those on top of society, they're also crazy. They're walking around with suit and tie. This guy is throwing one bag. Maybe he will threaten one person, but they're throwing bombs every day and killing tens of thousands of people. So the whole society is crazy. We should want to get out. But as we increase our devotion to Krishna and we get the taste, the rasa, you use that word also, then naturally you don't care. Prabhupada wasn't afraid of coming to the West, even though he knew it was horrible. But he wanted to please the spiritual master. So that's the mood we have to pick up. To please Srila Prabhupada, we should be willing to go anywhere. Like Prabhupada said to that girl who said, you talk about hell. He said, London is not hell. You're thinking London is a nice place, but it's hell. So the whole world is hell. We know that. But if we're getting the taste of pleasing the spiritual master, then we don't care to preach in hell or wherever. But it can't be artificial. It can't be artificial.
Thank you. Nakatma Prabhu, please say something.
Well, in general, the question was, if Krishna is asking us to serve him in a particular way, but we have an inclination that we could serve him in an even more, say, intense or risky way, should we take that, kind of maybe speculating? Well, like there's this one pastime where, to make it more clear, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he came to Prabhupada, and he wanted to go preach somewhere in particular. And Prabhupada said, no, don't go there, I want you to go somewhere else. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj kept insisting. And Prabhupada's like, no, I want you to go here. But Tamal Krishna kept insisting, and Prabhupada reluctantly kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then Tamal Krishna went there, started a center or something, and he came back with like dozens and dozens of new devotees. And he brought them into Prabhupada's office and kind of, show-ponied them. And Prabhupada was actually very pleased. Even though Prabhupada didn't want him to go, he came back and he made so many devotees, he took a risk. And then Prabhupada ended up being pleased. So it's like, if the spiritual master, Krishna, is saying, serve me in this way, but we have an idea, like, oh, I could serve him even better. Should we do that? Is that a speculation? We should do it? It's a speculation. Yeah.
Mentioned in the Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada describes that it's the duty of the disciple to adopt the mood of the spiritual master. He says that very clearly in the Nectar Devotion. So when the spiritual master asks you to do something, we should take it that there's an empowerment that comes with that order. But if you want to be obstinate or you want to do something other than that, and he allows you, it's only so that you can learn a lesson. Krishna can get all of these services covered quite easily without your help. But it's just the whole process of bhakti is surrender. So you have to surrender to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is getting direct instruction from Krishna and they know what's best for you. But if you want to be a rascal and just do your own thing, your own way, then you have to also be ready for the consequences. But as Brigupati Prabhu was explaining throughout the whole class, that it's all about just surrender.
It was risky. We both know what that story. I mean, Tamal Krishna, that was risky because Prabhupada wanted to stay in India and be the GBC, and he didn't want to. He wanted to go back to the West and, preach. And Prabhupada was going, what is your preaching,
Yeah.
He just got, I won't say lucky, I don't know how you refer to it, but thank Krishna, he somehow or another made a bunch of devotees, and when he got back there, 1 year later, Prabhupada was pleased. So, but that's a risky program, right?
I was there in New York when Srila Prabhupada spoke to Tamal Krishna Maharaj and sent him off. And for various reasons, history is there. But, and he was quite, what's the word? Not combative, but he was
Reluctant?
reluctant. And then Srila Prabhupada gave him just Dumna to assist him, gave him the opportunity. Maharaj wanted some help, so he picked out Dristadumna. So that, again, it was the spiritual masters giving a little bit more facility to encourage the devotee. So it's, if you're intelligent, you'll just take the instruction as it is, and do your best to not be attached, but do your best to execute it. It's your duty to make the desire of the spiritual master your own desire. And Prabhupada explains that very clearly in the Nectar of Devotion.
Okay. Anybody wants to just bail out? But I want to give your leader a chance to say something, please.
So this is about the point, doing devotional service life after life and not desiring even these liberations, whatever kind. There is another conversation between Tamal Krishna Maharaj and one of his disciples. In short, the essence is that there was discussion like, so what does surrender mean? And this devotee was like, I will dedicate my whole life. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, not just this life, like all the lifetimes. This is like an eternal relationship. So it's not for just one life. We have to continue serving the spiritual master forever. That's the eternal position. So yeah, I just remembered this. Thank you.
Thank you. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.